Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the nerdiest competition ever created by the Language of Bromance team. In this corner, obsessed with Star Wars and anything with swords, Richard! And in this corner, obsessed with the Ninja Turtles and scared of anything from the ocean, Shawn! Brought to you as a Pod Bros exclusive in association with the LOB Army. Tonight's competition is a Language of Bromance draft.
What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of sad fomance. This is, you know what this is? This is a draft. This is a draft episode. So it's fomance, right?
Yeah.
But this is where enemies come together. You know what this is, Shawn? This is a parable. There's a biblical parable like this. It's a story of Isaac and Ishmael.
Okay.
Because they're brothers and they hate each other, but they both come together at the end of the day to bury their father.
Oh, well, this guy really isn't our father, but very recently, when this comes out, it's probably been close to a month. The one that's created a lot of our excitement, a lot of the new movies that we go see, recently just passed away at the age of 93, I think.
Yes.
And it was one...
No. Was it 90? I want to say it was 95.
Oh, I thought it was 93. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
But it was one Stan Lee.
Wow, we're super on top of this, aren't we?
It was one Stan Lee that ended up passing away, the guy that created all the awesome Marvel stuff. We see him in a bunch of cameos as we get through this Marvel universe. And so for us to honor him, what we wanted to do is for our 45th time ever for our draft, we want to do a Stan Lee character draft. And if you don't know, and you should, what our drafts are, there's 7 rounds, NFL style, where flip-flop picks back and forth. Whoever gets the first pick in the first round gets the first pick in the second round. And back in the day, we flipped the pity to see who goes first, and I won. So on odd drafts, I get the first pick. Even drafts, Richard gets the first pick. This is an even draft. And I think more honorable because I know you were a more hardcore comic book fan back in the day than I was. So I think it's very...
especially for Marvel. Yeah. I gotta, I was much more of I didn't read a lot of DC. I was much more of a Marvel fanboy when I was an avid reader back in my early teenage years.
I think it's fitting that you would get the first pick for this. And what we're picking here are the Stan Lee character creations. So these are the guys that, in comics or in the movies too, this had the most inspiration for us, or the ones that we like the best.
Agreed. And so pick one. I'm diving right in, Shawn. Diving right in. Pick one. I think pick one has to be he created so many characters. I read Mark Bernardin, who does Fat Man Beyond. He recently did an article. Well, not recently, but he did an article on Stan Lee and just the impact he had and stuff like that. And he talked about how in the period that he was, creating and writing and doing all, everything with Marvel was over the period of 10 years.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, you think about all the characters he created, all the different things he did. That was just over the course of 10 years. That was really his heyday, where all those characters that got made, all the characters that we're about to talk about were probably made within this short 10-year period. And it's kind of I mean, for lack of a better word, it's kind of a marvel
Yeah.
that he did so much in such a little time. It's one of the greatest. Mark called it one of the greatest creative bursts of the 20th century.
I can concur with that.
Because he created all those characters, and all those characters have now endured for almost 50 years.
And they're going to, I mean, you think like now too, all the exposure that's getting done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's going to be another 50 years that these things are going on.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like there was one character that was I think kind of his baby. One of his characters that was like the one that everybody always like instantly are like, Stanley, this character. It's Shawn, pick number one. It's got to be Spider-Man.
Yep, that was going to be my first pick.
It's got to be everybody's first pick. When you think of Stan Lee, that's the first one that pops in your head is, oh, he did Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man wasn't, funny enough, like Spider-Man wasn't the first, character that he created, but I would say it seemed like it was the one that was nearest and dearest to his heart in a way. It seemed like that was the one, that was the one that kind of didn't start making comic book movies, but that was the one that that helped, we got a Spider-Man movie in, when did Spider-Man originally come out?
It was before 2001.
Yeah. I mean, before that, it was an animated series, and then you had, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Well, I mean, you think about what that.
So you had a bunch of animated stuff.
What that spawned is, you think of like the diversity of Spider-Man. Like you have Spider-Man, you have Miles Morales, you have Gwen, Spider-Gwen. It crosses more than just a single thing. Like it's helped create. And I know Stan Lee didn't create all those other ones, but he helped create this universe of, just great stuff. Like there's a new movie coming out in December called what is it called? The Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or something like that.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Which crosses.
It
looks so good.
It crosses over all the different. It crosses over Peter Parker and Miles and there's another one, and then there's the future one, and crosses over all of those. But I don't know. Like I felt like Spider-Man kind of set a tone for a lot of the other characters that you get in the Marvel universe. And one of the things that I thought was so cool when it came to Marvel Comics, and one thing that I thought that they were so much better at than DC, or as Stan called it, our distinguished competition. One thing that I thought he did so smart that nobody else, or that DC didn't do, was that he set his characters in the world.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea.
In the world you or I know, like you read Superman and you read about Metropolis, and, you can kind of guess where Metropolis gets pulled from.
It's still a fictional city, though.
It's kind of like New York. It's kind of like, it's kind of like, it's got elements of New York. It's got elements of this, but you can't go to Metropolis except in Illinois.
That's true. Yeah.
Metropolis.
Southern Illinois. There's a big old Superman statue in there.
Yeah. They put a black armband on it in honor of Stan Lee.
Oh, nice. I didn't realize that. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think
but you can't actually go to Metropolis. You can't actually go to Gotham City. You can't actually go to Central City. Those places don't exist.
Well, I think when you look at like relatable characters, you think of Superman, you think of Batman. Like Batman's a billionaire. Like I can't relate to that. You think of Superman, he's an alien. I can't relate to that. But Spider-Man was just a teenage kid, struggling day to day.
A nerdy teenage kid. He was a nerdy teenage kid that lived in Queens.
Which, I mean, it's like, okay, I don't live in Queens, but I mean, small town USA, kind of similar. I mean, I could relate to that.
Yeah.
Even though I've never really been a person that, like, I've never looked at comics and be like, oh, I identify with that. Because even with Spider-Man, it's like he got bit by a spider. I'm never going to get bit by a spider and get anything but, like, gangrene on my hand. Spider-Man got Spider-Man abilities. But still, it put it in realistic terms. They talk about all the stuff that he did in the comics where he tried to make it realistic. Like he's worrying about school. He's worrying about the girl he likes. He's worrying about all these real things Whereas a lot of the other
And on top of that, he's worried about a giant lizard.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how would you feel as a 16-year-old, 15-year-old kid where, hey, I got, finals tomorrow. Oh, and guess what? This thing that looks like a goblin on this rocket launcher is running around town blowing stuff up. And people's like, where are you at,
Yeah.
Spider-Man? It's like, I'm trying to study. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I got fucking tests tomorrow. Or Aunt May's going to fucking kill me. Gonna kick my ass. You ever seen a 90-year-old lady punch the shit out of you? It doesn't hurt, but it hurts inside.
Definitely hurts the emotions. But yeah, and it's very much like the first time, and it's, with great power comes great responsibility. Like, it definitely lays out like, hey, there's people under these masks that have human issues that they have to deal with. If you woke up with
Exactly.
If you woke up with like superhuman strength and all these abilities, what would you do? Would you do it for good? Would you do it for bad? And you learn that with this type of stuff, it has consequences. We learned that from the very initial story. He goes out and tries to make money, and he doesn't help out. What happens? Boom! He has a consequence from it.
Yeah, and it shows that these people are heroic. They're not being heroic for this, And you can say this about all superheroes. All superheroes in the comics, in a way, is that they're not doing it for fame or money, which is true. But I would say, in the case of Spider-Man, he's truly doing it because he feels obligated to. He feels like he has a responsibility to people, and it's kind of touching to see that, like, and like you said, like, underneath this mask is a kid with the same fucking bullshit we have to deal with.
And I think that's what the new kind of well, I guess it's not really new. Well, it is new. The MCU, when they got the chance to bring Spider-Man in, that's what they've done really well. They've casted a really young kid. They've put him in these situations where he's just figuring out all these powers. And the only weird thing is, like, he's kind of got that mentorship, which I don't think he really had in the comics at all. But it is nice to see this more realism in this superhero universe. Because a lot of times you don't see that. It's like, like I said, Batman. Well, he's brooding. That's the only humanity thing you could be like, oh yeah, I'd be sad if my parents got shot in front of me too. But with Batman, it's like,
I don't know if I get in, dress in a bat suit and build a bat cave, kind of sad.
Well, I mean,
teach
the
their
problem
own.
is like, you couldn't do that. Like, he's got billions of dollars, so he could do that. He could waste $10 million on becoming Batman. I can't do that. I can't waste $100 to try and be Batman. And if I do, guess what, Richard? First night out, I get shot. But if I get bit by a spider and get superhuman abilities, like, I could put on a red PJ outfit for a couple days until I meet a billionaire who buys me a suit.
Yeah, but see, even then you can't, because Spider-Man built those web shooters.
That's true, yeah. And that's the other thing that kind of makes it tough to relate. 'Cause, like, I know I'm not smart enough to be Spider-Man, because, like you said, he built those web shooters. He was super smart.
It was super smart.
But still, it brought it as close to being relatable, I think, as you can.
I would agree with that. And like I said, I felt like, out of all the characters Stan created, I felt like Spider-Man was kind of his baby.
Yeah, I can see
in a
that.
way. Was kind of his number one.
Which do you think he
and not necessarily because it was because, like I said, it wasn't the first character created. It at one time wasn't the most popular character he created.
Do you think that I know, like, he got some movies. I know he always talked about, because the guy who is credited with creating Batman, who was real big when the first Batman's came out, I guess they had kind of a feud, and when it opened big, I guess he was kind of harping on Stan Lee. And of course, when the Spider-Man's come out, he's already passed away. And so he didn't really get to rub in his face that, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans did really, really well. But I'm curious if when he saw on the big screen Spider-Man showing up with all the Avengers, that he got a little giddy on the inside, that he got to live long enough to see that.
Yeah.
And he got to see it multiple times, 3 times, I think, to an extent. And I'm sure he's probably already seen the new ones, I would assume.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I probably, as much as I don't know if they're finished, but I mean, I know that his scenes, like, he filmed cameos for the next 2 or 3.
I think it's up to 5. I think he's got 5 cameos.
Okay.
So he's a little ways out there. I don't know what 5 they are, but there's 5 cameos out there. Which you think when we go to those movies, it's going to happen 5 times that you're going to see him up on the screen. But that 6th movie that comes out, when you go to see it and he's not there, like, that's going to sting a little, I think.
A little. All right, here we go. Quick side draft. Most favorite Stan Lee cameo.
Deadpool at the strip club.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a pretty good one.
Mine was Guardians 2, where he's in the spacesuit and he's talking to the Watchers.
That's a good one. I think that's a more like Stan Lee cameo. Like he's telling them the stories.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, it's like it's not really necessarily Stan Lee at the strip club, but it's just like, oh yeah, it's Stan Lee.
He cameoed twice in that movie because he had an after credit scene too.
And oh yeah, he was when they start walking off without him in Guardians.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how am I going to get home?
But yeah, there you go, Sean. First pick. It's got to be. It's mine. It's yours. It's everybody's first pick. You think Stan Lee. First character you think of is Spider-Man.
Good first pick. So my first pick, I don't know if you would necessarily see this character and think Stan Lee, but when you think of like what Stan Lee kind of pushed in the 60s and stuff, he was, definitely talked a lot about, racial equality. He tried to, discuss like these tough issues in a tough time. I don't know if I don't know what year it was created. 66. So yeah, you're kind of like on the cusp where people are kind of starting to talk about this, but still a tough time. But my second round pick, Richard, is going to be our king from Wakanda, Black Panther. So
nice.
I think this is a character, again, like a lot of people I think knew about it, but it wasn't until the movie came out where it's like, oh my gosh, like this is a cultural, this is huge for a ton of people. And this is really what it was in the 60s because, again, it's tough for me to relate to characters and stuff like that. But, there's a lot of kids out there who are like, okay, I'm in Queens, but I don't look like Peter Parker or, I'm not a billionaire.
Right.
And here was something.
It's tough for you. I would say it's tough to relate to a character because you're right. You're not super smart and blah, you're not building web shooters in your spare time. But think how hard it is for like a young African American kid in 1966 to try to relate to a comic book character. I mean, I would say it's even harder for them.
Yeah, it's even a step
and
further
so
back.
So then Black Panther, there's a comic called Black Panther about a guy who's a fucking king and is a superhero and he's a king of a country and he's, he fights with Captain America. Like him and Captain America are like super tight and they're best buds and they go on they get out of jams and shit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like a buddy cop movie.
Well, it definitely kind of crosses the lines of, being like, hey, we can work together. Like there's a racial divide like in this time frame, but here it's like, hey, listen, everybody can work together. There's not a us versus you. It's, we're in this together. And I know he wrote a lot in his kind of pieces he had in the comics about kind of saying like, we need to tackle these issues. And I feel like that's what we have now. I know a lot of people, there's people who are shitty about it, but, like people who talk about like, oh my gosh, like when Black Panther came out, there was like all kids of all kind of racial differences that want to be Black Panther because he's a cool character, white, black, Asian, like all over the spectrum. And, that's the kind of thing like I love from seeing this now is like the generations now can kind of look past that and be like, hey, this is just an awesome character. And I feel like that's something that I hope Stan Lee would feel happy about that, now we're blending together just as like one group instead of trying to divide ourselves, which is something he seemed to really push really hard for.
Yeah. And even more so, I think, racial tensions are diminished, but obviously they're not completely gone. And once again, you have, Iron Man and Cap and and Thor, and you have a whole generation of young African American kids that are like I can't 100% relate to this. And then again, here comes a Black Panther movie and they're like, oh my god, this character looks like me. This is fucking amazing.
I feel like you're kind of shitting on Falcon there a little bit. I always thought he was badass.
Well, Falcon was badass,
but he didn't get a lead in the movie.
I mean, he wasn't a king of a fucking country while simultaneously being a goddamn superhero that can flip around and punch people in the fucking face with super technology.
That's true. Black Panther does have the super technology. But I feel like it's definitely kind of like when you talk about Stan Lee, what he did for, and I don't know if you would say like he helped push anything in the right direction, but it didn't hurt. It definitely helped. So my first round pick, I want to go with Black Panther.
Okay. All right. Next pick. Let's see. I'm going to go with a character that was popular before all these Marvel movies and before, you know, a lot of the animated stuff and, you know, and stuff like that. There was a character that took an old story and kind of flipped it on its head. And also, you got a TV show out of it, Shawn. For my next pick, I'm going with Bruce Banner,
Ooh.
the Incredible Hulk.
Good one. That was going to be my next pick as well.
Oh, my God.
So he stole 2 from me.
I know. I feel so good about myself. I was going to say bad, but let's be honest. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel really good. I mean, so the classic story, Jekyll and Hyde,
very
right?
Much, yeah.
You know, it's a guy who, you know, something happens in Jekyll and Hyde. He drinks a drink and turns into a fucking crazy person that, you know, but that does bad shit, right? Yeah. So now let's take the Incredible Hulk. This is a guy, you know, mild-mannered Bruce Banner, the scientist who's exposed to gamma radiation, whatever the fuck that is. And when he gets angry, he turns into a big fucking green rage monster.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't think it really was true, but like in Mallrats, he kind of gives the speech about how like Bruce Banner and Hulk was kind of a kind of play on himself. You know, like he would get filled with so much rage that a monster would come out.
Yeah.
Which I heard a cute story about that.
Was true.
So when Stan Lee was in Mallrats, the gist of it was he would tell the story about the girl that he lost. And as he was going through it, he asked Kevin Smith, he's like, listen, like I'm married. Like that's the only woman I've been with kind of thing. And
he has married for 70 fucking years before she died. She died 2 years ago.
Yeah. He's like, listen, if I tell this story, my wife's going to be like, who's this woman? Like, can we add something here just to make it sound like this is just a story? And he's like, plus, I'm Stan Lee. What woman's going to turn this down?
He's so fucking boss. But yeah, his wife, Joni, they were married for 70 plus years.
Wow. And she passed away 2 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. Which to me is a fucking, you know, accomplishment in and of itself. Aside from like the whole, like being married for 70 years, especially being married 70 years you know, when one person is Stan Lee and the other it's, you know, it's not like a Hollywood power couple where, you know, oh, this actress married this actor and you know, they you know, they're this power couple. Well, like Stan Lee was Stan Lee and Joni, you know, was not, I don't want to diminish and say, oh, Joni was just his wife, because, you know, she was. Well,
she wasn't in the limelight as much.
Exactly, she wasn't in the limelight, and she, you know, but she was. They were partners, and they were together for 70 years, and it sounded like, you know, had a very beautiful fucking relationship.
Which I've heard. I think it was Kevin Smith again talking with him and his wife that. His wife was telling us, like, you know, the reason that we stay together, we're as strong as we are, right? And it's like, well, because you're the star, you're the one that gets all the media attention. I'm just kind of a, you know, even though she's just not a normal person, she's pretty awesome, but I'm a normie. I'm not like on these public stages. Those Hollywood power couples, they're both on this huge stage. So they're like competing for, you know, attention, and
they're competing for attention. They're competing for roles in a way.
It's kind of a fake relationship too, because they're both actors and they both kind of have that fake Hollywood persona, I guess.
They both have, you know, images to maintain.
So I think kind of having where like they weren't a power couple probably helped them kind of stay together as long as they did. I mean, I'm sure they had a better relationship than most too, but I'm trying to think, like, I know in Stan Lee was a big name, but like when Mallrats came out, he was pretty big. He's a lot bigger now, though. Like, your mom knows who Stan Lee is now. Did she know?
Yeah, I would agree. Once the Marvel movies really started to take foot, you knew who Stan Lee was. I mean, when I saw like you were talking about his cameo in Mallrats, like I knew instantly who Stan Lee was. Like as soon as I saw him, I was like, "Holy shit, that's Stan Lee! That's fucking amazing!" As soon as I saw it. But I had grown up reading comic books and reading Stan's soapbox and him talking about his distinguished competition. And then, like I said, they had that Spider-Man animated series. Like he did stuff and like he showed up in there. He put his voice on that stuff. But so we kind of digressed a bit. But going back to the Incredible Hulk, this is a character. So with Jekyll and Hyde, when Jekyll turned into Mr. Hyde was an asshole and did evil shit. This is Bruce Banner, who turns into a big green rage monster and is helpful.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, he does kind of go off the rails, though, doesn't he, as Hulk?
Well, I would say that you saw that more in later years than you did in the early years. In the early years, he turned into a big green rage monster and punched the bad guy in the face, and everything was right with the world. When in the later years, it was discussed more about things like collateral damage.
I gotcha.
Like, hey Hulk, thanks for saving the city, but you ripped apart 3 city blocks.
Sorry.
Hulk, sorry.
Now Hulk's sad. Hulk going while the winner's paid.
Hulk go have drink.
Oh, now angry
but
Hulk drunk.
And like I said, it was a TV show in the fucking 70s. Lou Ferrigno, Bill Bixby, where Bill Bixby's running around and trying to solve this problem, and finally, he gets angry. He turns into the Hulk, punches everything in the face, and all's right with the world. And then he puts on his backpack and wanders down the road, and some sad music plays and credits.
Yeah, sad Hulk music for sure.
Yeah,
I love that show
because he could. It was a good show. He got angry, and then Bill Bixby turned into Lou Ferrigno and punched everything in the face,
and all was right,
and everything was right again. Yep, good times. One thing, and this is just kind of a cheesy thing that I love about Stan Lee's characters, is I love the fact that Stan Lee almost had like kind of a compulsion to have the first and last name start with the same letter.
Yeah. And the first and last name could be first or last names. Peter Parker, both first names, both last names. Bruce Banner.
Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Matt Murdock, Reed Richards, Susan Storm.
Yeah. All pretty much like first names. Clint Barton.
Oh.
Doctor Strange.
I always
Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Sam Wilson. Professor X. I mean, they're all like first and last names.
Incredible Hulk.
Groot.
But yeah, like I don't know, it's always something I always liked. But anyway, that's my second pick. It's the Incredible Hulk, Dr. Bruce Banner, who, due to a gamma radiation accident, whatever the hell gamma radiation is, turns into the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk.
I like it. All right, for my second pick, this is a character I probably wasn't really too familiar with until the MCU came around, but he was kind of the staple for this MCU. And it's a character I think that I really enjoy because you talk about Stan Lee's characters, and they're not just like, they're not Batman. Like, you go to a Batman comic now, it's Batman. He's got, a suit, he's got skills, and he is what he is. But I always feel like with this character, he puts him in peril where he, and I guess he does it with a lot of the characters too, where what do they do when they don't have their powers? And so for my second round pick, I want to go with Iron Man. So Tony Stark.
Wow.
So super smart dude, billionaire, builds a suit that helps him, kick ass. But where did he build that suit? He built it, out of just junk to begin with, and then he continues to improve it as he goes. It's a character that kind of groups all these people together and leads. I know in the movies, I think every bad thing that's happened has kind of been from, I don't know if you call it his hubris, but definitely from his potential trying to make things better. But it's a character to me that, you look.
The entire MCU wouldn't happen if Tony Stark would just stop building shit.
Yeah. Well, and
stop building shit, Tony.
What I like, I don't know, was he one of the founding members of Avengers?
I believe so.
Because Spider-Man was as well, right?
That I don't know.
But
I think originally it was. I mean, not really so much Cap. I mean, Cap showed up in like the second or third issue. I think originally it was. I know Vision was there.
Looks like Thor, Ant-Man, Wasp, Iron Man, Hulk. Yeah, and Captain America joined in issue 4. So I mean, pretty much right there. But like, I always feel like Stanley. Marvel's having issues. They sold characters off, and they kind of made what they could with the toys they had. And you wonder if, let's say Marvel circa 2008 had every character in their playbook. I don't know if they would have hitched their ride to Iron Man. It'd probably been things that people know, Spider-Man, X-Men, because those already had movies out. Would those have been the things that they kind of tried to build their galaxy or build their universe on? But Iron Man, I think, is a great character because it's kind of that smart billionaire guy. He's got goodness in him, even though he can kind of seem like a jerk on the outer layer of himself.
Right.
But it's just like the suit. The suit's hard, but on the inside, just a big mushy man.
Aww, that's so sweet. He was, I mean, this is the backbone on which the Marvel Cinematic Universe was built, was Iron Man. And so a few things when it comes to Iron Man is that, obviously we're not billionaires, but again, we were talking about how these characters are a bit, to me, feel a bit more real and feel, Tony Stark is kind of a flawed human being. Yeah. I mean, honestly, and they kind of play up the fact that he's a fucking alcoholic and a bit of a womanizer.
And they don't really play on that in the movies too much. I think at the first one or two they kind of do, but yeah, definitely. I mean,
I think they play on the sleeping with women and having a drink now and again. But in the comics, I think they address like, Tony, you're a fucking drunk.
Yeah, I mean, I guess really in the movies, it's more the PTSD they play on with him seeing all the stuff in outer space in Avengers 1.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a good point. What's Batman's...
that PTSD is what compels him to do the things that he does.
Like, again, and I'm not trying to shit on DC because I like DC, but, Batman and Superman, like, what are their biggest flaws? Batman's sad that his parents got killed, so he goes around and punches people in the face and throws batarangs at them. Superman, I think, is trying to be human. But, I can't really relate to those things. And even if, God forbid...
my planet didn't get blown up.
Yeah, and God forbid something happened to my parents when I was little. I mean, again, I wouldn't be going out and fighting crime late at night because I would do that one night and I would be with them in death. But I mean, yeah. But again, I kind of like that character. Like you said, I think it's a great point that he kind of is a very human character, which a lot of Stan Lee's characters are. So my second round pick, I'm going to go with Iron Man.
Yes, all of the things. All right,
has a great theme song.
No, true story. Let's see. Where are we going? Next pick. Okay. All right, Shawn. Next pick. I'm gonna go with a character that is that was part of a team. She was part of a team, but then it kind of, she kind of developed her own character arc throughout the course of this book, and honestly became one of the more powerful characters in the Marvel universe. And we can go into, how it relates in a way to real things later. But Shawn, I'm going to go with the mutant known as Jean Grey.
Ooh, good one.
So Jean, obviously one of the founding members of the X-Men, had powers similar to Professor X, not as strong, but she was young. And as the book developed, she eventually took on like her powers kind of increased a lot, and she became the Phoenix. And then there was a whole saga about it where basically she was just way too powerful and almost out of control. And so, it was kind of like, holy shit, what do we do? She could set herself on fire and crush things with her fucking brain. Now what? I mean, like, on the larger scale, when you're talking about the X-Men, I think you're talking about, and one of the things that I loved about the X-Men, the X-Men came out in a time where, again, I felt like X-Men related a lot to things like racial inequality and stuff like that, but I think it took it to an even more extreme level because, and even on a more relatable level, because in the comics, mutants were almost treated as a second-class citizens kind of status.
Yeah,
to the point where the one of the main villains who started out as a good guy, Magneto, started out as a good guy, and has a concentration camp tattoo on his arm. So he knows all about what, terrible people could be. And I felt like the X-Men dealt with the issue of, hey, do you feel different? You're not really different. You're just special.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea behind it is, you had to heighten secrecy. You had to keep this thing hidden from people, from your parents, because, government or different entities didn't want you to have these things out in the open. I think was the first openly gay comic book character, was it an X-Men?
Shit, I don't remember.
I thought it was, or at least maybe one of the characters in there was that, because I know it was kind of like the character got, and I should know who it is, but I don't. But the character got married to their same sex partner, and just kind of, because that's kind of when you think about X-Men. What's most relatable to that, I think, is kind of being a young kid who is gay, and you have these feelings of like, oh my gosh, like I'm not normal. And this is something to relate to. It's like something that, like, oh my gosh, Jean Grey can't tell her parents about who she is because of what'll happen. I kind of feel the same way.
Right. And I think every kid that has, come home from school and felt different and felt like they didn't, belong to, didn't have like a group of friends, didn't have, anybody that they could relate to. The X-Men, I think kind of told that story and said, you're not different. And it's like I said, you're not different. You're special.
Yeah, I know that's what kind of.
And there, as the nerdy, as the geeky kid in middle school, that I was kind of seen as odd because I read comic books and knew a lot about Star Wars. Like, hey, you're not different, you're special. And it made me feel, like it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad to be different because
Well, you think when this stuff came out,
maybe I could go to a special school where people walk through walls.
Yeah, and when you
it's like it was like Hogwarts before there was Hogwarts, Shawn.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you think about these when these came out. This was pre-internet, so you didn't have a really great way of finding other people you relate to. Like today, you get online and throw a rock, you're going to find 15 different websites, 15 different subreddits where you can be like, oh my gosh, there are so many people that are just like me. And you can kind of connect and learn and grow. But like back then, it's like, because I went to a pretty small school, so finding my kind of similar group of people I didn't really have. And I didn't really even get introduced to comic books until after school. So like having these things when I was in school would have been super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go, Shawn. Jean Grey. That's pick number 3 for me. I think that Jean, out of all the X-Men, I think Jean was kind of one of the bigger cases of it kind of being a bit more of a parable for what the X-Men was about.
Well, I think that makes sense.
Jean Grey was a kid that had crazy fucking mind powers, and then not only becomes part of a team that helps her feel like she has a place she belongs, but then eventually surpasses everybody and becomes the fucking Phoenix, which has the ability to, basically almost end the goddamn universe.
Well, Richard, my third round pick, I think this is a little bit of a selfish pick, I think, because it's a character I really, really like. And I guess if I had to say, like, if there's any character that in anything I've ever read that I feel like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I can relate to this character, it would be this one, because although in the, I think it's the Marvel Universe series, they kind of mention that this guy's got maybe a mutant ability. But when you think of him just in the normality, he's just a normal dude with really good skills, like a learned skill. And that, Richard, is the one Clint Barton Hawkeye. So this is a character who, like you think about, it's like, hey, if I want to become a really good shot, it would just take tons and tons of practice.
This is what you started reading after Avengers. Yeah. After Avengers came out, this is the series that you were like, I need. You went and actually picked up Hawkeye comics.
Yep, I went back and I picked up the Marvel Universe ones. I think I got it was like a 4 or 5 series run for a 4 or 5 issue run for Hawkeye, and I think I got like a couple alternate covers and whatnot too for it. And it's just because again, it's like it's a character that I feel like is relatable to me, kind of a dude in the Midwest. Shooting and hunting is kind of one of those things that you kind of do as you grow up, but it's a skill that you can learn. You can go out and become this thing. Like he's not a super rich dude. He's honorable. He kind of reminds me almost like a human Leonardo to an extent. He's got that a little bit on him. And then, like I said, like when I first saw Avengers, like again, you go through the characters. Hulk, I'm not going to get struck by gamma rays and be a Hulk. Iron Man, like I'm not a billionaire that can build a suit. Captain America, I'm not going to be stuck with any serum. And you run into this guy, Hawkeye, and it's like, oh, well, that seems plausible. Like that seems real.
I could do that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work and that'd be hard. But I mean,
I'm shying away from it. But
maybe that billionaire idea. No, that's too much work too. But, this is a character that it came out from Tales of Suspense number 57 in the 60s. He was a part of a bunch of teams. So he's kind of a journeyman. He's in Avengers. He was in the Great Lakes Avengers, the New Avengers, kind of all over the place. I don't feel like he's ever had a solid home. And even in the movies, it seems like they haven't really used him to the best of his ability. Because, I don't know, I feel like he's a good, maybe barometer of honor. Maybe like I feel like he'd be the guy to kind of keep everybody going down the right path. And I don't know if you've read any of the new Hawkeye series that came out just shortly after Avengers. Those were really good because it was him. It was a character who was basically he bought this apartment building because it was going to get demolished and everybody's going to get kicked out. And he bought it so the people that were living there could keep living there. And he's fighting a Russian mob that's trying to take it over. And he's doing it all just because he wants to be a good guy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's a ton that you want to add to him, but again, it's just a really cool character that I always kind of, if you say like, what character do you feel like you could relate to? It'd be this one, Hawkeye.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't really have anything to add. I think you were, not that I have anything against him, but I would say between the two of us, you were much more of a Hawkeye fan than I.
Oh yeah. I jumped full
Not that
board.
I have any, like I said, I don't have anything against him. Just, there's people I like more.
And I kind of fell out of the comic because the comic got really weird. Like it skipped like 3 months and then they released like issues out of order. and the guys who were doing it
That's odd.
got kicked off of it, but they're going to release their final issue, and then the new person picked it up, but they were focused only on Kate Bishop, and I just kind of fell out of it. But the first like 15 issues were really, really good. But yeah, that's my number 3 is just Hawkeye.
All right, number 4. So this is a character that I read a little bit on, mainly because it was one of my dad's favorite characters, if not his most favorite character in the whole Marvel spectrum. Captain America was a super close second, but if you would ask me what his favorite character was, I'm gonna have to go with this one. Sean, for my next pick, I'm going with Dr. Stephen Strange.
A little bit down on my list, but that was definitely one I wanted to pick. So was your dad all in on the comics and everything?
Yes, he was all in on the comics. He loved Doctor Strange.
When you think like your dad was a big D&D guy, like that's a wizard or a sorcerer from D&D. Yeah. Like that's a very D&D character.
He's the fucking sorcerer supreme. Yeah.
And I feel like the movie that came out really kind of like sparked my interest. I don't think it's gotten all the credit it deserves. And even him being in the new Avengers movie, I don't feel like got all the stuff that he deserves. So I'm really curious to see Avengers 4, how he plays in that. And if he's going to kind of take that Iron Man, Tony Stark mantle in the Avengers movies to come.
Why would he do that?
I'm guessing that Iron Man is probably not going to be with us forever.
Well, that's true.
So you got to have kind of the old.
I gotta say that like I'm kind of partial to Doctor Strange too, because he has all these cool titles. That he's the Sorcerer Supreme. He's the fucking call him Doctor Strange. His name's Stephen Strange, and not only that, Sean, he is a doctor.
That's true.
He's an actual. He's an actual doctor.
Do you? I know in the comics he actually loses his hands, right? Like they have to amputate him.
That I don't remember. I
thought he had to, maybe it was just the movie, the TV movie or animated movie. But I like that idea of like
I think it's the animated movie.
Okay. I like that. I mean, I know he still has his hands in the movies, but I like the idea of a doctor whose profession is with his hands, like not having those at all. So, because I mean, like when you think with like his sorcery and stuff like that, he could probably do something to make his hands work. But if they're gone, it's kind of more of like it's humanizing him. It's giving him some kind of fault that he has to fight through. Not just oh my gosh, I'm sad about this thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I have this inability and I'm, some people might say like I'm less of a human, but
yeah, but in a way, like, hey, I had a career. I had, my life was my work and now I can't do that anymore. And I think that, would be disheartening to some.
I'd agree. I mean,
if it was something that you loved doing and then all of a sudden you couldn't do it anymore. I mean, I don't know if those people would travel to Tibet about it, but, I mean, it's whatever.
Depending on how sad you were.
But the thing that I liked about Doctor Strange is he would like spout off all this fucking like mystical jargon nonsense. And he would just say it kind of like off the cuff, like I'm supposed to know what the fucking Eye of Agamotto is, or I'm supposed to know about, the different fucking parallel universes. And, here's this incantation which summons the face of 1,000 masks or the mask of 1,000 faces. And I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? And he'll just like say shit. And like everybody's just supposed to keep up.
Yeah.
Like, I do this all the time.
Well, and I think if it wasn't for the movie, I probably wouldn't know as much as I do about Doctor Strange. But getting somebody like Cumberbatch in there was just perfect. I'm trying to.
Oh my god! Pitch fucking.
What
perfect.
was Stan Lee's cameo in that one? Do you remember?
When they're when him and Mordo are chasing down the bad guy that I can't think of his name, and the city's like spinning around and doing all the funky shit. At one point, him and Mordo land on the side of a bus, and he's sitting in the bus.
He's reading a comic, isn't he?
I can't remember if he's reading a comic or reading the paper. I can't remember. But they land like on the side of the bus and he's sitting on the bus.
Gotcha.
That was his cameo in there. Oh, Doctor Strange. And Baron Mordo, who becomes his greatest villain. It's like he becomes his Moriarty, which I'm not making that because I'm not making that pun because I'm not drawing that comparison because it's Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm just saying Baron Mordo becomes his arch nemesis. And Doctor Strange crosses over all the time, crossover with Spider-Man a bunch, and I think they were even in a team together. I think Doctor Strange and Spider-Man were in the Defenders together, if I remember correctly. Who knows? Master of the Arcane. Sorcerer Supreme.
Doctor Strange,
the Eye of
Woman.
Yeah. He's fucking within the Sanctum Sanctorum. And he lived in Soho. See, that was again, like an old reclusive eccentric guy that lives in Greenwich Village.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know somebody that, if you ever go past one of the more colorful parts of town and there's some weird guy that lives inside a house, you'd be like, that's fucking Doctor Strange. All he needs is the cool window on his roof and done.
And a cloak.
And a cloak. And to do the finger things with his, awesome. I like I said, I kind of picked that more for my father, but I will say that I thought Doctor Strange was a very cool character. In DC they had Dr. Fate, which was super similar. I would say that Dr. Fate in DC was way more powerful than Doctor Strange kind of came off in the comics. But I think Doctor Strange covered an area of comic books that especially Marvel comics, that you didn't really see, which was the more kind of mystical, supernatural, and that was kind of the thing with the movie. I would say, the movie kind of you thought that he was, it was going to be more like mystical, and it was, but I think that. I think that the Doctor Strange movie, explored the idea of a multiverse and parallel universes and worlds and evil beings from other dimensions and planes of existence. And
that's the thing with a lot of the Stan Lee stuff too, is it was kind of rooted in some sort of like realistic science too. It wasn't just a magical book. It was something that had some kind of scientific, explanation for it.
Yeah, very much. Very much. So there you go. There's my number 4. No, 5.
Number 4.
No, 4. Okay. Number 4, Doctor Strange.
Like it. All right, Richard, from 9 to number 4. So, during the 60s, there was a pretty big standoff between the Russians and the Americans. There was a lot of talk of spies and, Russian spies and, people pretending to be Americans, but actually Russian spies here in America. And we had one of those characters, which you don't really get to see a lot of that in the MCU because she's already kind of defected and become part of the Avengers. But I want to go with the one Black Widow. So,
Natasha Romanoff.
So strong female character. She's getting her own movie soon, which is exciting. But it's definitely a situation where, again, this is a time period where there's a Russian spy. She starts out as a bad woman, trying to work for the Russians, but then she defects to the United States, becomes part of the Avengers, part of the good guys. And it's there's a little bit of this, I think, throughout comic books during this time, but, comics really kind of expressed the times, right? Like you think about this, like what was the big standoff? It was Russians and Americans. Like during World War II or post World War II, it was definitely a lot of Nazis, underground Nazis, occult Nazi type stuff. And so to take a character like that and put her in and make her work really, really well, I think is kind of a testament to Stan Lee's skill. And again, during this time, not a lot of strong female characters. Like I probably could see this being a male character during this time and probably try to make that work, but to make it a female character, to make it a strong female character, and to get it through like he did, to make it last. Now that there's a whole group of people who don't know Black Widow until the MCU kind of came about, but there are probably people who would say like I think Black Widow's an awesome character, and one I think they should have had a movie for long ago.
Yeah, that I will agree with. I felt like you know, considering that you had Black Widow and Iron Man 2, and then
was it
and Iron Man 2, and then the Avengers and Avengers, like all those characters aside from Hawkeye had their own movie.
Yeah.
But I felt like she was a character. I felt like Scarlett Johansson kind of brought. Yeah, I felt like she brought enough personality to the character that would warrant that you could easily do a movie.
I agree.
Not only 2 Avengers movies. Well, I mean all the Avengers movies, but then Iron Man 2 and Cap 2.
Civil War. Yeah.
Oh no, Winter Soldier.
She was co-starring in that pretty much.
Yeah. So, I mean, to put her in so many different movies and not give her her own, like I felt like that was kind of a disservice.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to know why that
situation got rectified. I don't know. I don't know. I'd be kind of curious about that myself.
People have been asking for it, and they would have been the first to the table with a strong female character movie. Because, I mean, surely they weren't like, well, let's see what this Wonder Woman does and see if, like, people actually want to see a strong female character.
Yeah. I mean, it couldn't have been that. I agree.
But yeah, that's my number 4 is the one Black Widow.
All right, number 5. Number 5's a bit of an odd choice, but I always liked when this character showed up and in the comics, and I also liked. Okay, I was talking about the cameo earlier. But for my number 5 pick, I'm gonna go with a character that a lot of people don't even actually know the name, but it's Uatu.
Okay, I don't even know who
the character I'm going with is Uatu the Watcher. So the Watcher in Marvel Comics was, I mean, that's exactly what they did. They sat and they watched. But I felt like that was kind of almost, Stan in the comics. It was, they would come across as this like omnipotent being that saw everything and almost kind of narrated what you would see in comics. The Watcher had I wouldn't say a prominent role in the Infinity Gauntlet miniseries, but the Watcher was certainly there, and I think Uatu brought the Eternals in. But a series of comics that I also kind of liked was they would always do a what if. They did a what if series.
I remember those.
So Uatu was usually the one that would narrate those.
Cool. So they're kind of the. I mean, I guess they're the Watcher. They're kind of like the GM or the DM, the Dungeon Master of this universe.
Yeah. And I always felt like that was kind of. I always felt like of the characters that Sam made, I felt like that was kind of almost like Stan's role in the universe. He was the Watcher.
That was his character. Like that was him portraying himself in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. And so. The coolest what if comic I remember is what if the Silver Surfer had stolen the Infinity Gauntlet, because at one point Thanos gets all distracted and Surfer flies in to try and grab this Infinity Gauntlet off of Thanos' hand and just barely misses, and then a bunch of other shit happens and whatever. But in this is what happens if Surfer grabs it. And it ends up, on this tangent where all this, crazy shit happens. And I really liked it. But I always just kind of I was always kind of fascinated with the character of the Watcher. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's just like this, being that sits, behind everything and just kind of, like I said, it's almost like your ever-present narrator.
Do they ever play like a huge part? Like, or are they just always just kind of there in the background?
Well, I didn't realize that the Watchers were were actually a race of beings. Like I thought it was just the one and that was it. So the one that I'm thinking of, like I said, his name is Uatu, Uatau. Uatu, yeah. But he's kind of like the he's known as the Silent Sentinel.
But they don't.
I always just kind of like the character.
But they don't have like their own comic or anything like that. They just always pop in.
No. That you'd see him in like Fantastic Four or Silver Surfer or a lot of the comics that dealt with more on a more cosmic level.
I gotcha.
The Watcher would show up.
Yeah, I know that in the only little bit we've got in the MCU is, like you said, the Guardians cutscene with Stan Lee in it. And again, how fitting would it be if his last one was with them?
He's the Morgan Freeman of the Marvel Universe. But it wasn't fine. Thanos snapped his fingers.
Hawkeye drove through shit for 7 days.
So there's my next pick. I'm going with Uatu the Watcher.
I like it. All right, Richard, for my 5th round pick, I feel like I'm going to steal this one from you because I feel like this is a TV show that you just pawn over all the time. But again,
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. It was actually going to be my last pick, but I was like, no, I like the Watcher better.
But it's a character that has a disability that he got as a young boy, and from that he gains power and strength and fights crime. And it's not necessarily that he's fighting crime on like a cosmic level. He's fighting crimes in a small area of New York City, Hell's Kitchen, which is like 6 blocks, I think, in New York. And that is one Matthew Murdock. Actually, it's Matthew Michael Murdock, but it's the one Daredevil.
Again, Matt Murdock, the man without fear.
Yes, and I love whenever you see comics that, and I think that's why I always navigated to or kind of drifted towards Batman, because even though the whole Batman thing's kind of make believe, he usually fought he has a few supernatural-esque characters, but for the most part, he was fighting just normal characters. You know, like Joker's just a man. Two-Face is a man. Mm-hmm. I mean, you start getting into like some of the other ones, it's not as much, but Daredevil's kind of a similar thing. He's fighting like crime, he's fighting mafia, he's fighting like all these things in Hell's Kitchen, trying to bring people up, you know, trying to do good. It's kind of the lawful good type of character. Like he's doing this not just for himself, he's doing it to help the community. And even in his day job, he's a lawyer, like a good lawyer, like trying to help people that need help. Yeah. And the TV show, I think, again, like the movie that came out wasn't the greatest, but the TV show that's out for season 3 now, I think, I've seen season 1 and part of season 2, but such a you know, just a great character. I don't know a lot of the history of why Stan Lee created this character. I don't know if you know much about it either.
In terms of why he was created, that I don't know. If you're asking why they, you know, tried to, or what they were trying to relate or whatever. But yeah. Okay. So here you have a character almost similar to Batman, but I would say it's a bit more real.
Yeah. Oh, I'd agree.
You know,
well, it's,
you know, his dad gets killed. Yeah. So his dad gets killed, you know, battling Jack Murdock, the boxer. Bad shit happens to his dad. And then Daredevil's fucking blind. Little Matt Murdock can't see, but then he's got these, you know, he's got this weird fucking heightened senses where he can, you know, fucking put his hand on doors and figure out what's going on in a room, or he can smell like shit from 3 miles away and
he's like,
nonsense like
man,
that.
The guy in 8B 6 blocks away just farted.
You know. And he's smelling his, who does that?
Don't fart in your hand. That's just gross. Have you ever dirty cupcake somebody where you fart in your hand and you throw it in their face?
Yes.
Okay.
You know why, Sean? You know why I do that? Because I'm a man.
You're married.
It's like that's, I feel like that's kind of a requirement. Like I feel like you haven't done that, I almost have to pull a man card, right?
I think so. I don't know.
So yeah, so he fought crime. That was kind of like his big, you know, his thing is he fought like mobsters. He fought, you know, real criminals, except for the ninjas. He's fought real criminals and he fought ninjas. Everything was super relatable and real and something you could totally see a dude doing, except for the ninjas. I don't really see a lot of ninjas around, but maybe that just means they're good ninjas. Not good as in good, righteous ninjas, like skillful ninjas.
Like it. But yeah, I feel like it's a pretty cool character kind of getting towards the end of this draft. But yeah, for my 5th round pick, I want to go with Daredevil.
That was a good pick. That was actually, I like I said, I was going to pick it last round. If you didn't take it, I was going to take it this round. Also the story. Oh God. I can't think of it. Guardian Devil.
Yeah.
The run that Kevin Smith did with Daredevil, I thought was really, really good. Where are we at? Number 6. All right, I know my number 7. So where do I go with number 6? You know what? I feel like the villains have gotten no love. So I'm gonna pick a villain. He didn't really create a lot of villains, but there were a couple. Green Goblin, sure. But there was one villain, and you were just talking about it. But this was a villain that you saw that was a villain for multiple heroes. He was a villain for Spider-Man. He was a villain for Daredevil. He was a villain for the Punisher. He was a villain for, He was an adversary that stood in a lot of characters' ways. In a lot of comics, you have one, you have a hero or a group of heroes, and you have one bad guy.
Yeah,
and that bad guy is almost like the superhero has exclusive rights to this villain. But this is a villain that spanned multiple heroes and multiple different thread lines. Shawn, for my next pick, I'm gonna go with Wilson Fisk, the kingpin of crime.
Pick. That's something else that Marvel does really good. Like you mentioned earlier, I guess, but just crossing over, like, you don't see the Joker fighting Superman that often. And when you do, it's like a specific arc. But Kingpin, he shows up in arcs just randomly. I think in a Punisher, I don't know if he had the character, the lightning bolt guy that fights Spider-Man a lot. Electro. He shows up in a Punisher comic for just random reasons because, like, hey, guess what? All these characters exist in the same world.
Yes. Yeah, you didn't really see Bizarro Superman show up in Gotham City a lot. But like here, like when you're talking about the Kingpin, he fought Spider-Man. He fought Daredevil. He fought the Punisher. He fought, a myriad of other different heroes. He wasn't exclusive to one thing because he was the kingpin of crime, Shawn. He was the kingpin of crime. And not just that, like the thing that, and I actually, the reason I know this is because I used to collect trading cards.
Oh, yeah.
They had baseball, when I was a kid, they had baseball cards, but instead of baseball cards, obviously, it was Marvel characters. So, and I remember I collected like 2 whole sets of different series of these Marvel cards, and would have like a picture of the hero or villain on the front, and then on the back it would give you like statistics, but kind of like numbers that didn't really mean a lot, and then it would give you little factoids about the character. Wilson Fisk, okay? I don't know if you know this, Shawn, but Wilson Fisk is trained as a professional Greco-Roman wrestler.
Oh, nice.
Like, he is a top tier. I guess he didn't like compete professionally or anything like that, but he knows all the moves, and he's
trained. He's like a black belt. He's like a black belt that didn't go to the Olympics.
Exactly. He knows how to fucking throw down. Not just that, Shawn. You always see the Kingpin as like this big dude. Like you see him in the comics, and he's like this. He's seen as the Kingpin of crime. And he always, he wore a white suit. Like a white,
they treat him like a fat cat. Like he's out of shape, but he's
exactly. They treat him like a fat cat, like Penguin. you know, in a way. But the thing is, Sean, he's not fat. That's all fucking muscle.
He's bad to the bone.
He could like, you know, put his hand through desks and shit like that. Like, dude was strong. Wilson Fisk was strong. Kingpin could fucking crush my head like a grape.
That's why I love in the first season of Daredevil they show that. Because, I mean, your first exposure to him, if you see like, oh, who's this Kingpin? You look it up, it's like, oh, this is a fat dude. You know, he hires henchmen. It's like, no, he smashes dudes' heads in with car doors on his own.
Fuck yeah, he does. He don't give a fuck.
But, I mean, it's a good kind of twist on, because, I mean, again, like this was, you know, organized crime is always something that gets like put into the pop culture or, you know, comics or movies. And this was kind of Stan Lee's, you know, organized crime character.
Well, and I think it was a way to, you know, lump organized crime into like one kind of monolithic sort of evil with this character as the figurehead. You know, because I mean, when, you know, in the 70s and the 80s and even in the 90s, like, you didn't know that there was an Irish mob and a Russian mob and an Italian mob and and the triads, and you didn't know there were all these different, you know, almost like a cultural rainbow of organized crime. I didn't know that, but I did know that there was organized crime, and I knew, you know, that existed. So what in the Marvel Comics, you had organized crime, but it was all, you know, it all trickled up to this one lone figurehead that was the kingpin of crime, who sat behind a desk and was like, ha ha ha, maniacal laugh. I'm gonna smash this desk with my fucking bare hand. And yeah, he had henchmen, and he had, you know, he would bring in other villains to, you know, ruin everybody's fucking day. And I will say, okay, so you were talking about Daredevil in the television series. Sean, I'm halfway through season 3. Oh my God. If you like the Kingpin in season 1, like, he is 10 times that in season 3.
Yeah, I need to get through all of season 2 and jump into season 3. It looks...
Oh my God. He is 10 times what you see in season 3. Like, I feel like season 3, he's really like, it's more of the Kingpin you remember, where like he just, you know, is able to do shit and be shit, and you're like, you're a fucking criminal. Like, how are you getting away with the things you're getting away with? And he's like, because I'm the motherfucking Kingpin of crime, God damn it. So yeah, Sean, there you go. Pick number 6. Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin of crime.
I like it. All right, so my 6th round pick, this was a character we mentioned just a little bit. And I one of the other things that kind of noted here is like you always talk about like the first stuff from Marvel Comics. So I'm going to go with the character Falcon. It is Sam Wilson. And so kind of looking through his stuff, he is the nephew from an Incredible Hulk sidekick who was the first openly HIV positive comic book character. So you think about these things, it's like trying to be like, hey, you know, because you think like, was it the 80s? There's the big HIV scare where it's like, oh my gosh, if you touch the hand of somebody with HIV, you're going to die, essentially.
Yes.
And so like, this is just something that brings stuff to light. It's like, listen, that's not the case. That's
not how that works. That's not how any of that works.
But this is another character. It's an African-American character. I don't know if Stan Lee had any doing in this, but he became basically he kind of took up the shield of Captain America throughout the TV show, and I'm pretty sure through his run too. He's a very patriotic character. Like, I think he's... Yeah.
I mean, the taking up the shield and stuff like that was way after Stan's time.
Yeah, I don't know if he had any, like... I know he probably didn't, like, direct it to happen, but I don't know if anybody bounced ideas off him or if he floated ideas to him. I'm not sure if he was involved in any of that at all. I don't know if he was.
No, I mean, he was pretty much done with Marvel Comics in, I want to say, like, the early, mid-70s.
I gotcha. So, yeah, it really was a 10-year run, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, he still would show up as, I think he was still kind of like almost like a mascot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he kind of still had that role, but in terms of in terms of actual like day to day operations and stuff like that. I think he was pretty much out of the picture by the 70s.
Gotcha. But again, I mean, I really like what this character's done in the movies. He deals a lot with Captain America in the movies, and I'm kind of curious if we're going to get to see him pick up the shield and be the new Captain America.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Little short and sweet, but my number 6 pick is Sam Wilson Falcon.
Okay. All right, Shawn. This is my 7th pick. I would say that this one's kind of personal to me because I would say that this is the character, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why I latched onto this character so much, but this is the character I would say got me into reading comic books regularly. I owned, when it came to this character, I started buying issues of this at, I want to say around issue 45 or 50, and I collected all the way up to 110.
Oh wow! You still have them?
I sold them off long ago. But Shawn, this is the character that I was always this is my guy. And then this character has made an appearance in a movie. Not a great appearance, I'm gonna say, but I would say that his role in the Marvel comic universe was way bigger than anything you would see in the cinematic universe. And actually, he was in the Infinity Gauntlet, the whole Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And I could tell you exactly where he falls in the. If you took one character out and put this one in, I could totally tell you where it is. Shawn, for my 7th round pick, I am gonna pick the Silver Surfer.
Ooh, nice call.
Like I said, I couldn't even explain why, but I loved the Silver Surfer. I thought he was just the fucking coolest character. He was so overpowered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think 90s. It was surfing was kind of big, like California, Hangton, and this was a cosmic surfer. This was a guy who surfed in space. He
flew around on a fucking surfboard and he shot laser. He had the power cosmic, so he shot basically lasers out of his fucking hands and just beat the shit out of people. Okay, and also he was a bad guy.
I was
going to say,
I thought he was kind of a bad guy turned good.
He started out as a bad guy turned good, but he wasn't But he wasn't really a bad guy. So what happened? So the story of the Silver Surfer is he's on a planet called, oh God, now I'm trying to remember. Zenla was the name of the planet. Okay. So he's on this planet and he's living his life. His name's Norrin Rad, and he's hanging out and having a good time. And then guess who shows up, Shawn? Galactus shows up.
Dun, dun,
Galactus,
the Eater of Worlds.
Eater of Worlds. Yes. The Eater of Worlds, Galactus, shows up. And he's like, I'm going to eat your fucking planet because I'm on a keto diet and your planet looks good. And it's less filling. And Norrin Rad's like, no, don't eat my planet. There's people I like here. And everything would be happy if you would just leave. And Galactus is like, all right, I'll make you a deal. He's like, you will be my herald. Basically, almost like his henchman's not the word for this, but basically like
his sidekick.
No, not a sidekick. Definitely some sort of servant, but kind of a more prominent role of a servant. So he says, if you will be my herald and go to planets and tell them that I'm coming and I'm going to eat their fucking faces and their planet, then I will spare your planet. And he says, okay, that's fine. He's like, okay, well, if you're going to be my herald, you can't just be fucking Norrin Rad, some dude that just is normal. Yeah. So I'm going to turn you silver. And he turns him silver. And I'm going to give you this fucking surfboard. And then you're going to fly around. And he's like, okay.
Well, I guess this is my life now.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. So he becomes Galactus's herald, who, and Galactus imbues him with the power cosmic and turns him into the Silver Surfer. So it's the Silver Surfer's job to go and figure out what planets are more ideal for Galactus to eat.
So he's kind of like a waiter or a cook.
Kind of, yeah. That like he flies around and like picks like the tastiest planets. But what he was trying to do is he was trying to pick uninhabited planets.
Oh, I gotcha.
So that way, like, he wouldn't have to fucking eat people. But then Galactus, figures that out, and he's like, I don't care if there's people on it or not, fuck you. And so eventually the Silver Surfer comes to Earth and meets up with the Fantastic Four. And he's telling them, like, you guys got to get the fuck out of here. Galactus is coming, and he's going to eat your fucking planet. And the Fantastic Four is like, fuck that. We're going to fucking fuck with Galactus's shit. And the Silver Surfer's like, all right, you know what? I've been working for this motherfucker for I don't know how long. He's like, fuck this. I'm on your side. And so he becomes a good guy, and they all fight Galactus, and they end up winning. And then the Silver Surfer is basically like released from his service. And then then he just like flies around and, blows shit up or, beats up bad guys.
He's like, Fantastic Four. How about the Fantastic Five? Like, no.
Yeah.
We're not taking any applicants right now. Like, you can maybe intern and we'll see about maybe shipping you off to a team. Like, you put us on your resume, but that's about it.
But yeah, I don't know what it is that had this, that I liked about this character so much. I have no idea. I could not tell you, but I did. I collected so many. That was the one comic that I wanted. I had to get every single month. I was like, got to get that Silver Surfer. Got to get that Silver Surfer. The oldest issue I had a Silver Surfer number 7.
Oh wow,
was the oldest issue I had. I found it at a con and bought it for like, I don't know, it was like $10 or $15 because he was kind of a character like nobody really. That was kind of a character that nobody really cared about. And like I said, he did show up in that second Fantastic Four movie because it was Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
But it was not that great. I was not happy.
Yeah.
Not happy with it at all.
Well, again, this is one that...
But but I was talking about the Infinity Gauntlet thing. So in Infinity War, when they send Hulk on the Bifrost... and he crashes through Doctor Strange's place, and he's like, laying there on the ground. And he's like, Thanos is coming. And they're like, who the fuck are you talking about? In the Infinity Gauntlet series, the same thing happens, exact same thing happens, but it's the Silver Surfer.
Oh, I got you.
Silver Surfer is the one that crashes through Doctor Strange's fucking house and is laying on the ground. He's like, Thanos is coming. You're all fucked. You're all so fucked.
But isn't Galactic tougher than Thanos?
No. Not with the Infinity Gauntlet.
I guess that's true.
Because Galactus shows up with like all the other Eternals, and then Thanos fucks their shit.
I guess if one-on-one Galactus is tougher, but with the Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos is pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah. So there you go. My money shot pick. The character near and dear to my heart. I'm going with the Silver Surfer.
Nice. All right, Richard, for my 7th round money shot pick, I think this is a character we have to put on our list. And it's a character that, you think of as like the dad you wish you had or the teacher you wish you had, the guy that took all of his wealth, created a school to bring in people that were just like him and help them become better. And that is one Professor X.
Yeah.
X-Men,
Charles Xavier.
Yes. I mean, he creates this school. He brings all these people who feel like they're unwanted and gives them purpose, gives them the ability to learn and control their powers. And again, you think of all the stuff that like social commentary, a lot of that seems to kind of come from the X-Men and Professor X. I know one of the things that they compared him to is like Professor X was kind of more like the Martin Luther King, like, trying to be more, not non-violent with your actions to try and like basically kill him with kindness to an extent. Whereas they always compare Magneto to like Malcolm X, like by any means necessary kind of thing. So I always kind of think it's interesting using I guess when you think about it, two white dudes to make social commentary. but Professor X, in the comics and the or in the movies, it's always a really cool character to see. It's somebody who is super powered but has a disability, right? Like he can't walk. And was it in the comic too, just like the movie, that by using his abilities that hampered him unable to walk? Or was he always just kind of not able to walk in the comics?
As far as I remember, he was unable to walk. So, I mean, I guess, take that for what you will. But, we talked about, the X-Men and stuff like that when we were talking about Jean Grey before. But, I mean, I would, the X-Men comics was definitely a tale about what can happen when things like prejudice and hate run amok.
Well, hate, fear,
hate and fear over something that's different.
And that's something I think the movies, and I guess it's more of like a subtle thing. Like you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is awful. And then you sit back and you think like, oh my gosh, like that stuff was happening like to real people. And it just kind of brings it to light, like, oh crap, like it shouldn't have took a comic book for me to realize this. I'm talking about more like during this time. I think a lot of us grew up kind of realizing that, I hope. But during that time, like you just kind of it simplifies it. I think like people talk about documentaries that use cartoons to explain, oh, you know what, sugar is bad. You're like, oh yeah, I guess sugar is bad. But for my 7th round money shot pick, I'm going to go with the teacher, the father figure, the Professor X.
Definitely.
Let's
Love
see.
it.
I only had 2 Ambuts. We talked about one, Galactus, and the other one I had that I don't know much besides the movies again, but Nick Fury.
See, I actually feel really bad that I didn't put this one on my list. But it was I was considering him not almost every single pick, but a good majority of them was Reed Richards. Fantastic Four. It was just, that was where it all started. Very first characters that Stan ever created were the Fantastic Four. And they haven't gotten great treatment in the movies, but the Fantastic Four were seminal fucking roles in the Marvel Universe. Reed Richards was so fucking smart. He designed the ultimate nullifier, which ended up fucking Galactus. That's what ended up fucking Galactus to shit. Reed Richards was I probably like on the level of super genius in terms of the Marvel Universe. Probably listed as one of the smartest people in the entire Marvel Universe, if not at the top.
Do you feel like there's a little bit of there's not as much of like an excitement to him because there hasn't been a good like on-screen representation of him?
Yeah, I would definitely. They don't even run the comic anymore.
Yeah, I know they stopped that, and a couple of the X-Men run they stopped too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which they said because of sales.
With Fantastic Four, you had, with Fantastic Four, you had this group that they go into space, they get radiation, and then they come back with fucking superpowers, which is cool. But then you had the first like comic book like wedding between Reed Richards and Susan Storm. They got married. Mr. Fantastic married Invisible Girl, Invisible Woman. Sorry, but. Yeah, I had Reed Richards on there. I wasn't really partial to the Thing, but I liked Reed Richards, so he was definitely on my list. What were some other ones I had? Captain Marvel. I kind of like Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel hopped on with Silver Surfer a couple times. That was the only reason I remember that one. Green Goblin I did have on there. Thor was another one. Thor, fucking Norse god of thunder, god damn it. How can he not be on your butt list? Shawn.
I didn't think Thor was created by Stan Lee. I thought
he was.
I don't think Captain Marvel was either.
Oh god damn it. What the hell? Well, I guess it's a good thing. I knew Captain America wasn't. Oh my god.
No, Thor was created by Stan Lee, but I think Ms. Marvel wasn't. I thought I just saw that. Yeah, Ms. Marvel was not. You're saying Captain Marvel, though. Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel comic. Yeah, he was. Yeah, the male one I think was created. The Carol Danvers was not.
Yeah, Carol Danvers I think came later, like in the 90s. Before it was a guy. It was a blonde guy.
That one was by Stan Lee.
Yeah. So yeah. So there's my inputs. I felt like I would be remiss if we didn't mention the Fantastic Four, because that's where it all started.
Well, it's going to be exciting again, like, with Marvel getting the Fox property soon. Like I mean, imagine Feige's like up to the point where he's like, "Fuck, what am I going to do now?" And then Disney's like, "Hey, we just dropped a shit ton of money. Guess what? You get X-Men, Fantastic Four, everything. Like, here's your
everything but Spider-Man, but you still have Spider-Man
so
kind
5, 6, 7, and 8 phases better be fucking tons of money." All right, well, let me run.
Yeah,
let me run through a couple of these picks. So Richard's first round pick, Spider-Man. Second round pick, Bruce Banner. Third round pick, Jean Grey. Fourth round pick, Doctor Strange. Fifth round pick, Uatu the Watcher. Sixth round pick, Kingpin. And seventh round money shot pick, Silver Surfer. And for me, for my first round pick, I have Black Panther. Second round pick, Iron Man. Third round pick, Hawkeye. Fourth round pick, Black Widow. Fifth round pick, Daredevil. Sixth round pick, Sam Wilson. And seventh round money shot pick.
Perfect. I love all of the things.
All right, Richard, do you have any Richard's closing thought as we kind of close out this memoriam for Stan Lee? And just, 14 great characters and tons of more that we didn't mention.
Exactly. 14 characters and tons more we didn't mention. I think I said this whole thing at the top, in the span of 10 to 12 years, you had one of the biggest creative bursts of the 20th century that created a whole shit ton, a metric fuck ton of characters that not only existed for those 10 years, but existed for 40 years beyond, and all sorts of new stories and everything else were created on the backs. And all of it made off the backs of one dude. So, what the fuck more can you say? Yeah. That's goddamn amazing.
One of the like kind of cartoons that were drawn after Stan Lee passed away was him at Heaven's Gate, and it was God saying, "You know what, kid? You're pretty good at creating universes too." I was like, that's pretty cute.
Aww.
All right, well, let me run through a little bit of housekeeping as we call this episode. Visit our website. We're at languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at eatthebeaver at languageofbromance.com. And remember, we are part of the Pod Bros Network.
The Stan Lee-est podcast network around.
Yeah, it is. And remember, you can always check us out. We've got our LB Army out there. It's our Patreon accounts, www.patreon.com/languageofbromance.
You nailed it.
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
No. What more can you say?
Yep. Sad to see him go. He had a good run. And again,
oh my God, so good.
We're going to get to see at least 5 more cameos of him, which I'm excited about.
Yay. Makes my heart happy.
But all right. Well, that's all the bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
I say we eat the Richard. Excelsior!
The Excelsior beaver?
Yeah.